like to introduce you to our presenter, Dr. Baker. He is an associate professor and director, social work, mortuary science, and gerontology programs, Department of Criminal Justice and Social Work at Gannon University. He received his undergraduate, graduate, and doctoral degrees in social work from Gannon University, Case Western Reserve University, Mandel School of Applied Social Science, and the University of Pittsburgh School of Social Work, respectively. In 2011, Dr. Baker became the first African-American tenured professor at Gannon University. He most recently became a Jefferson Education Society Scholar-in-Residence and Harry T. Burleigh and Beyond Fellow. Let's give Dr. Baker a warm JES welcome.
And thank you. I think I've been here long enough to, we don't have to say where I got my degrees from. That was just to let you know I know something. Yeah. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Is that your son? I love that. Love that. I'm going to amend the presentation. I hope you're comfortable with that. I am, because I know half of you, and I will get to know you, sir, through this presentation. And so the presentation designed, and I'll talk, I'm not abandoning the information. Do you mind if I sit? Good, all right. Is designed for an audience that may not know a whole lot about the subject matter, but I look around and I say, I got a whole bunch of folks in here who kind of know the subject matter. So let's talk about our perceptions on fathering and what we might be able to share with each other that we don't know, okay? And I think that's a more engaging conversation. So I'm gonna get started with a few things and then kind of tail off. And if you got a question, don't wait to the end, because I can always get back to the PowerPoint, okay? Yes. I keep forgetting, taping. Yeah, well, pardon me? I'm better use them, okay. I'm gonna keep it right here. All right. Have the same problem in church, trust me. Can't hear you. Yeah. So anyway, let's talk about this concept. When do men become fathers? Really, really important concept, because it is very different for men, and it's generally not seen or understood very well. If you Google this term, you won't find it very often. It is truly mine, okay? Through a whole bunch of just research and asking questions, I didn't come up necessarily with the idea. It came in discussion, and I just gave it some language. And so a couple things I want to just throw at you, and this is generally how I teach and how I present, is I start out by asking questions, get everyone involved. Spiritually, and I'm talking from a Christian perspective, though it could be Judaism, and in some circles it could be Islamic. It doesn't matter, because I'm coming from an Old Testament perspective, and all three religious traditions use the Old Testament, the Pentateuch, as the foundation. So Abraham, our father, is pretty consistent in those religious traditions. If I said to you, imago Dei, anybody know what that means? Imago Dei, created in his image, okay? God said we're going to let us make man in our image and likeness, okay? What does that mean? And that's a real question. We got 7 people here, 2, 4, 6, 8, counting the guy behind the camera. There you go, my man. What does that mean? Created in his image. God said, let us make man. This whole Trinitarian discussion, but what does that mean to you? Let us make man in our image and our likeness. Yes, sir.
I would say
Mm-hmm.
or in his image could be what he pictured them to be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Okay. Jeff, I'm gonna pick on you if you don't. Yeah, I told you I'm gonna call you out. Reflection in the mirror. Okay. Yes. And this reflection, just kind of get in there, is not the dirt that he blew himself into, because God is a spirit. So the manifestation of God is seen in the flesh, but that's not who we are. Okay. So one of the things I want to drive home, and I'll talk a little bit about this, is we keep making fatherhood and the issue of father presence and father absence a social issue. And I believe before it is social, it's spiritual. Because I believe when God said, let us make man in our image, two of the three people or spirits involved, God the Father and God the Son, participated in, let us make man in our image. So fatherhood actually came out of his mouth when he said, I want man to be like us. And one of the first things he instituted was fatherhood. And you can't talk about fatherhood without talking about sonship. Because what makes a man a father? Children, right? So he instituted that from the very beginning. And so before it is social, it is spiritual. We can look for correlates and causation all over the place. But for me, the discussion has to begin. Let's go back to the source. And God is the source of everything. And so where did we get off track? How do we think about this idea of fathering and where we may have had some missteps? Second question for you, and then I'll kind of get back to the presentation. Actually, I might save that. Kind of winging it here. So, answer the question. When do you think men become fathers? Yes. When they choose to. What does that mean? That's a really good answer. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, it kind of massaged the answer a little different. That's cool. You might be a politician, got a career coming. When he chooses to, or when he accepts it, accepts the identity, he becomes a father. And that's where the idea of the cognitive conception is. When the man receives the information, he may or may not receive the information like sperm to egg. And so his desire to withhold or deny or delay this role identity change is something that he truly can do. Legally, the law may look at him differently. Socially, the environment may look at him differently. Familially, the family context may look at him differently. But for him, accepting the identity of father, he can accept it or reject it or delay it based on what's going on in his noodle. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. I have a few more questions. So when a woman becomes pregnant, lots of things change, like physiologically, emotionally. Women go through a whole bunch of stuff. Men do not experience cessation of menstrual cycle. They don't gain weight. They don't feel any of that stuff. And I argue with that. Sometimes they don't feel it the same way as women. I went through morning sickness. So I do relate to it, but not in the same way the mother of my children experienced it. In fact, for some men, very few things change. If you think about this, when a woman becomes pregnant and she tells her mother, I'm pregnant, the mother's identity changes. What does mother become? Grandmother. Tells her father, grandfather. brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles. Once she makes an announcement, everybody's identity changes, and they have to think about, what is this new identity? What does it mean for me? And guess what happens? Generally, they receive that information and they begin to adjust their thinking and behavior to this new identity. That's why, wow, baby's not even here yet. And we think about, oh, we got to buy stuff and we got to change rooms and we got to prepare money. How do we spend money? Lots of things change. If I say, I'm not going to accept, as a man, I'm not going to accept that role identity right now, I'm not going to tell anybody because I've rejected it. So in the life of the father who rejects the father identity, very few things change in his life. Okay. There we go. Oops, going too fast. At some point, I'm going to learn how to do this. There we go. Most men will not become ill, won't experience morning sickness, mood swings, prenatal and postpartum depression, and all the things that come with being pregnant. Cognition. Let's go down to the second paragraph. The Latin meaning of the term conception or to conceive means to take into either the womb or the mind. So the idea, there's what's called a schema. And let me jump ahead a little bit here. There's different types of schemas. I want to talk about the two at the bottom, the self schema and the event schema. Now, one really cool way to think about schemas is this. When civic engineers are trying to figure out pathways, what they do sometimes is they watch where people walk before they have the buildings, and that's where they're going to put the sidewalks. Is they just watch, where do people go and how do they get there? And then they build a sidewalk. Sometimes, however, and this happens a lot at the campus called Gannon University, you will see an alternative path, right? Sidewalk is here, but there is like this area where the grass is not growing. Very clearly, people are walking, generally trying to cut through. It's a lot quicker to get to wherever I'm going straight ahead than following this path. And so there's a path development. That's like a schema where in your brain, certain thoughts have a way of traveling. For example, I'll just show you how a schema works. A, B, C, D, pick it up. Say it a little bit louder, I can't hear you. H, I, J, K. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, he was wondering if he could say, like, I know the answer. 100, 101, 102. And we're not even talking about that. We just know there is an order to those things, and the schema is, this is how it works. And by the way, it works the other way. 199, 98. Because we know the order of frontwards and backwards. A, B, C, D, do the alphabet backwards. Someone do it real quick. And you know why you can't do that? Because you haven't practiced it. So the schema says, I know how to get it this way, but most people don't know how to say it backwards. But in 15 minutes, if you practice rehearsing that, you would develop a schema for that, and you would be able to do it. It's just something that you do repetitiously over and over and over again. When we look at the self schema, when a female baby is born, what kind of toys do we buy for girls, infants, toddlers, and children? What kind of toys do we buy for them? And what color are the toys? Pink. Why pink?
By a female child.
Yes, but who said? Who said pink is for girls?
With the anthropology of having a female child.
Yeah, someone declared, and we just kind of over and over again, like pink is for girls and blue is for boys, right? What kind of toys are we buying for the girl? Dolls. Why? And I want you to think about this again. Don't get too deep into it because we won't turn this into a sociology class. But there are the schemas, because we do not do that for boys. We're socializing women to become mothers, to be integrated in the family. We do not do that with boys. We buy trucks and cars and action figures and stuff. What does that mean? There's some research that was done at Boston University, for me, really important work that I think is being missed, and hopefully the work that I and we are doing, we will resurrect some of this work. Because I want you to think about this next comment, and again, and then I'll get back to the presentation. Why are you limping? I thought you were pimping, but you are limping. Yeah, okay. Because you had that look. If you didn't have that distress look, I'd say pimping, but you were in distress. What you think about this next thing? It is possible for a male child of color to go through their entire developmental cycle from birth to age 18 and never see an African American, Hispanic, or what have you, authority figure of color. Think about that for a moment. And the import of that, how important that one comment is. So let's just walk through it pretty quickly. So who's the OGBYN in terms of gender? More likely female. The pediatrician, more likely female. Pre-K, more likely female. Daycare, more likely female. Kindergarten, more likely female. Elementary school, more likely female. Middle school, maybe we might get one or two instructors of color, but they will not be, if we follow the data, they will not be in STEM. They will be in the arts, a coach, a music director, gym teacher, something like that. And you can see where it's kind of going to divert here. And the conclusion that these researchers came up with, because their findings is really important, because what they were saying is the lack of African Americans specifically and fathers of colors participation is correlated with aggression being developed in male children. And they cite that's one thing. What are the models for appropriate pro-social behaviors? There aren't any. And the things that African Americans and other kids of color, when they get into those particular activities, what does that mean? That they're socializing to be aggressive. Because when they get in middle school, what typically happens with young men? What do? They begin becoming involved in athletics. And if you've ever been involved in those middle school sports, what happens? In fact, there's a strange phenomenon that's going on right now. What happens when they get with a team concept, football, baseball, or basketball? What are they taught? They do say the word family, which is interesting. They use the term, we are family. And what must you do? Protect your family. Win. Hurt the opposition. Do you see the correlations that they're making? Is how do I think about family? Got to protect them. And how do I do that? Kill the other guy. And by the way, I said this little strange thing that's happening, middle school, high school, and college. It is the parents that are just absolutely rude to officials and because they're saying you got to win, and for various reasons, and there's some ethics that go into that. What do you do to win and all that kind of stuff. So you get from middle school to high school, and here is where might be a little divergence where you might see a few more African American or teachers of color. If we had representatives from the Erie School District, I would ask the question, how many African American Latino instructors do we have in the school district? There are 11,000 plus, between 11 and 12,000 students in the Erie School District. How many instructors of color do we have? About 20 for 11,000 students. It's not just African American or students of color. Everyone is missing the contributions of African American instructors. Now let's get to college. I teach at the college level. Ask the question to my students, how many of you have been under the supervision of an African American instructor or a person who has supervision of some part of your body, a doctor, a lawyer, a dentist, or something? What's the answer? Most of the time it's never. Never have I experienced that. So you can see what these researchers were saying is the importance of African American fathers participating in the development of their children is paramount. It's essential. And for me, this idea of this cognitive conception, the sooner you accept the identity of being a father and integrate that into your role choices, the healthier your children are going to become. Absolutely essential that we get you connected as early as possible. Is it making sense to everybody so far? Okay. So the idea is, how do I see myself, and what are the events that are going to help shape? It's kind of like self, society, if I'm thinking sociologically. And George Mead, one of the theorists that I tend to subscribe to, says you can't talk about the self without talking about society, because the messages that develop the self, that provides information for the identity, comes from society. Okay, and so he sees them as being inseparable, and he is connected to the. Well, I'll get to the theory in a moment, identity theory, and why I use that. And I just talked about that a little bit. The process of cognitive conception begins when the idea of becoming a father is initially introduced. Now, is anyone familiar with DABDA? D-A-B-D-A? D-A-B-D-A? No? It is a framework for thinking about death. It comes from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, the 5 stages of death. It's also being used for when there is abrupt change in someone's life. The D represents denial. The A is anger. The B is bargaining. The D is depression. And then the last A is acceptance. Okay. And so to help my students understand this, I said, everyone take out a piece of paper. We're going to have an exam today. And they go, oh, what? And that's we're in denial. Like, why are we doing this? And blah, 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 blah. And then we go through the whole thing. And at some point, they get to bargaining real quick. Like, well, if we fail, can we take it again? And yeah, now we're bargaining. And if you don't fail, I'm going to put this in the grade, and it does count. I'm like, oh, I'm depressed. No. I'm just trying to walk them through it. Well, if you are not planning to have a child, and you receive this information, and here's one of the places where I got this idea, the seeds of it, is I asked a bunch of men in prison and those who were coming out of prison in reentry. I asked them the question, when you were having, can I say how old is he? Sex, okay. I don't know, just want to be careful. When you were having sex with whoever you were having sex with, whether it's marital or non-marital, was the goal having a child? And they all said no, heck no. And they gave their reasons why. So when the woman said, I'm pregnant, what was your response? Since the goal was not to have the child, and you can see the D is, no, wait, no, that ain't my child. And it helps people to understand you rejected the initial idea, I'm a father. If depending on your schema, how you think about family and fathering, is how you will begin to entertain the idea, to accept that identity. I might initially reject it, but it is not foreign to me, and I understand if that's my identity. There's some moral teaching or some social teaching or some religious teaching that guides my acceptance to this new role. But if you don't have that, you just say, no, it's not mine. And I'm just going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep moving. By the way, just a piece of information. In marital and non-marital relationships, the majority of pregnancy, it's kind of an earth-shattering revelation for me. Doesn't matter if you're married or not married. Most pregnancies are unintended. Doesn't mean unwanted, but unintended. They're off time, like, oh, I missed my period. Okay, well, we were going to have a child later on, but okay, we're good. Okay. But that's really important because depending on the environment around you when that information comes will help your comfort level in accepting the information. Okay. Possible reasons why men reject the role of father identity. Poor history with men in father roles. I had a horrible father. All the men around me, they were horrible fathers, horrible uncles, whatever. And I'm just generalizing. This is stuff that men have reported in self-reports. Attempts to delay or deny, and I've already talked about the acknowledgement of paternity. Poor interpersonal relationship with mother or mothers of the child. I don't want to be a father because I don't want to be connected to you, okay? And if I say I am the father's child, that keeps me connected to you, okay? Not prepared to accept the father identity status and the associated role expectations. Now, I want to be a little technical here. The difference between a status, identity, and a role is really important. So, sitting here, every one of us have more than one identity right now sitting here. Every one of us. We can call that status or identity. For discussion, I don't want to get too technical. We'll use those interchangeably, okay? So this is my brother Steve, 52 years, my buddy, right? So he's sitting here, he's my friend, my colleague. He's a deacon, he's a father, a grandfather, right? While he's sitting there, now he is a participant in this conference, or this presentation, and his cell phone rings, and he gets a message. Your son was just rushed to the hospital. What are you going to do? What are you going to do, Steve? What are you going to do? Yeah.
Well, the most important thing I'm going to do is be there.
Yeah.
Stay with him and experience the process that he's going to go through.
Yeah. Now I'm going to say to you, Steve, where are you going? You're my buddy, 52 years. Stay in my presentation. What are you going to say? What are you going to say? You can be real, because everybody behind you is saying, he's taking too long. Your son is, you got the information, he's now at Hammond Hospital in the ER. You're sitting here, you were cool, calm, and collected just 10 minutes ago. But now you got the information, he was in an accident, he's in the hospital. You get up to go to the emergency room, and I say, stay. What are you going to do?
Well, my experience is that I will stay. I've had that.
Okay.
Situation recently.
Okay.
As a matter of fact.
I appreciate you staying. How many of you staying? Because I'm not. I'm not staying. I'm not going to stay. I'll call you. Tell me how it goes. Now, I know your faith might be kicking in, which is, we'll get to the back end of that. Sometimes I don't have to go. I trust God. It's going to be all right. Okay. But I'm leaving, and this is identity theory in a nutshell. Because right now, I'm a presenter. I'm a college professor. I'm a pastor. There's a lot of people, a lot of identities sitting here right now. But if my phone rings and it says, one of my children, emergency room, did that mess it up? I'm out of here. I'll see you guys later. I'm sure you'll understand. Time, why don't you pick it up? You can read this. And I'm going to be saying that while I'm walking out the door. Jeff, you're pretty good at this stuff. Read my stuff. But I'm leaving because that identity has expectations connected to it. Every identity has an associated role expectations. If you are a teacher, this is what society says we can expect from you. If you are a student, this is what we can expect from you. And then how you perform those expectations is another issue. We'll kind of get to that down the road. But every identity has role expectations associated with them. They are either acceptable or not acceptable, adequate or inadequate, and who defines that's a whole bunch of stuff we can talk about. I just want to make that clear when we talk about this identity, this role identity called fathering, that it has expectations associated with it, okay? And then let's see where we're at. Role ambiguity, those expectations may not be clear, may not even be known. What does it mean to be a responsible father? And that is subject to a whole bunch of political, social, religious ways of thinking about fathering. So I went through identity real quickly. The proposition or the continuum of understanding role theory is everyone has role identities. Identity, the role identity is how does it work, how well or how committed I am to that identity. So I have an identity, how committed I am to that identity, how important that identity is in the hierarchical arrangement. So I prioritize first, second, third, fourth, fifth, okay? That will determine my role choices. So how committed I am, how important it is in the schema of these various identities I have will determine my role choices. So really important to understand what is identity commitment. It's what happens if I don't perform that role in terms of relationship. So the role identity says, I got a child in the hospital, but I'm going to stay. I'm not going to respond as a father. What happens to the relationship with my child if I don't show up? Does that make sense? What does it cost me? Commitment is calculated by the cost, personally and socially, of losing a particular type of relationship due to not performing a specific role identity or choosing a different identity. I'm going to be a participant in this presentation. Really? And you thought that was more important because people are going to make some judgments about that. So that's commitment. And commitment is internal and external. I don't want to get, again, too technical, but commitment is connected to what's going on internally, how I think about the role, and externally, how does society in the various social systems and social structures, how they tell me what it means to be a father, okay? And how committed I am to those definitions. Salience is the probability that I will enact those expectations of a particular role when called upon. The probability that a particular identity will appear and be expressed is mediated. Mediation just means this. If you have this and this, mediation is its presence keeps these two things together. The lack of presence, as it shrinks, reduces the relationship between these two entities. But it's just mediating the relationship. So if it's not present, that relationship will disappear. Okay? So it's mediated by the degree of commitment one has to that identity. Other factors that affect the manifestation of a particular identity are whether social structures or social situations allow for a particular or related identity to be performed. That's an important one. We'll get to that in the back end. And the degree of satisfaction experienced while performing the role, and we'll talk about that. But both of those things are important. What does society allow me to do, or for my family allow me to do? Where it might say I have choices, those choices could be limited or non-existent, and they also, in performing the role of a father, can be incredibly uncomfortable to perform them, okay? And I've kind of went through all this. I'll let you check it out real quick. All right. When choices are limited, and they could be limited by divorce and separation and the custody arrangements that come from that, child support, and we'll talk about that a little bit in terms of responsibility, the personal rights that are associated with paying child support, or what happens if you pay and certain things don't happen, and paternal responsibilities to the child that are, again, mediated by child support, incarceration and reentry, and some rules that may govern that, and sexual orientation, how people perceive if your father and the child has a father in terms of a same-sex relationship. Hold that thought. Okay, I saw. All right. One of the things that is missing, I think, again, I've done a number of research projects, and what I have discovered, again, hopefully I'll write more and publish more, is if you were to do a literature search on what do we know about paternal satisfaction, you will find very little research, very little understanding of how important it is for a man in the role of a father to be satisfied in what he's doing. And when he is less satisfied, like most other people in other roles, he will stop or withdraw from performing that role. Now, there's a lot of judgment around that, okay? But if I said to you, how many of you play piano? Well, there you go. Yeah, not good. And I said to you, sit at the piano for 5 hours and practice. You may absolutely start hating that thing after a while. Like, I'm not going to show up because if I show up, you always make me play the piano. I don't want to do that. I'm not that good at it. I'm not going to do it. I don't want to diminish the role of the fathering. I'm just trying to help our understanding. Don't be so critical when a man says, I don't really like how this feels. Every time I go, there's another man. He's parenting my son or daughter in a certain way. That's not working for me. And by the way, this woman is just, and by the way, every time I go to the child support office, they treat me a particular way. And child support, they don't really help me. In fact, everywhere I go, it's not working for me. And you want me to keep going. Yeah, that makes sense theoretically. But we tend to, the things that we don't feel good about doing, we tend to withdraw from those things. So one of the things we got to pay attention is how do we make, if we want men to be involved with their children, how do we make that more pleasant for them? It's pretty simple. How do we make it more pleasant? And the systems that are currently in place, they don't think about that at all. They don't even care about that at all. How do I know that? The people who I talk to. Child support enforcement, you know what they say? I wish some were here, but they're not. We're creditors. We're not counselors. We use the term counselor, but we're not counselors. Did you pay? All right, here's a letter. You didn't pay? You keep missing. There's going to be somebody coming to get you and put you in jail. It is that simple. We don't counsel. We don't want to hear your story about why you can't pay. We didn't make you have that child. You're responsible for being that child. What do they mean? Financially responsible for taking care of that child. And if you got more than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, that ain't my problem either. Right? All right. You can see I go off on that one. Father satisfaction is how do I feel in the role and what am I doing? The behavior of my children. How do they respond to my involvement? And then the interpersonal relationship with the child. How do we relate to each other? And again, the fathers state their satisfaction is directly impacted by the type of relationship they have with child welfare systems and the mother of their children. When satisfaction is high, fathers participate more often and enjoy the relationship between the father and their children. It's much more enjoyable. They're more willing to participate and do things, the higher their level of satisfaction is. The interesting thing about this is when we look at marital satisfaction and maternal satisfaction, you know what we find? They say exactly what I just said. So if it works for mom and it works in a marital relationship, why do we think it wouldn't work this way? Okay, and there's some whole prejudicial things and judgments that come into that. Steve, I don't know if you heard this story. I'm going to tell you a quick story about, again, where this whole idea of role identity connected to fathering came from. And so here's a quick story. I was surprised. Between 92 and 94% of all state, local, which one is it? State and federal prison parents are fathers. That's a huge number. That's a huge number. Yeah. And how do you do it from prison is really difficult. You got to really think, what are the role expectations of fathers? So if it's financial contributions, how do I do that from prison? or protection. How do I do that from prison? And there's a level of accountability that still is consistent with that identity. But here's a story where I struggled. Steve and I, we did a group, Abba Fathers, at the Erie Community Corrections Program. And there was a father who came into the group weeping, just struggling. And so, what I won't say his name, let's call his name Mr. T. So Mr. T came and he said, what's going on, man? He said, I need your help because I don't know if I made the right decision. Well, like, you don't mind sharing with the group? Let's talk. So he did. Here's what's the situation. When he went to prison 15 years ago, he spent 15 years in prison. He's doing the reentry thing. When he went into prison, the mother of his child was pregnant when he went in. Okay, she had a girl. Somewhere in that 15 years, their relationship changed, and she got another man. So she had multiple boyfriends. He comes home. We're going to try to work this thing out. So he's coming home, spending some time with her. He's trying to develop a relationship with his daughter, and it's going well. And then one day, now he's got to be at the ECC at 10 o'clock, or he is considered AWOL, okay, if he's not in at 10 o'clock. And they are no nonsense about that, okay? So he leaves his home, or her home, at 9:30. Now remember, 15 years, he doesn't know her at all. So they're building relationship. And now I'm dad. And somewhere in there, she began trusting him. But she's afraid because she doesn't know how the next thing she's going to say to him is going to change the relationship. So she says, as he's walking out of the door, Dad, I just want to tell you, I've been struggling. I was molested by one of Mom's boyfriends at 9:30. Now, what is the expectation of fathers? Step up, protect, comfort in that moment. He struggled with, I'm a felon too. Remember choices? So which one of these identities do I now pay attention to? What are the expectations? If I am not back at 10 o'clock, I'm going back to prison when I do get there because I'm considered AWOL. I've absconded from prison. He tried to explain that to her. I got to go back because I want to come back. And that was when he got back, he asked for permission. Here's my situation. Can I get an extended leave so I can go back? And they said, no, you can't. You're here, that's it. And so the next group is when he started to share, did I make the right decision? And I said, given that information, I agree, you made the right decision because you get to go back. And she will understand that because of your presence. But if you had stayed and got back at 10:15 or whatever, they're going to ship you back to Albion or wherever he was going. I think it was Albion. And you would have had to do out the rest of your sentence. You wouldn't have seen her. So while it was uncomfortable, I think you made the right decision. But I want you to think about the pressure of that decision in that moment. What would that be like? And that's what I say about choices. Did he have a choice? Well, he had some choices. He could have stayed, but they were really limited in what he could or could not do. And there's so many stories like that where, here's where I want to connect to two ideas. The degree to, remember commitment? The degree that he was committed to the identity of father is important, because he could have just said, I ain't gonna struggle with this at all, because that's not high in the hierarchical arrangement. But it was really important to him. That's where the struggle came from. What happens if I don't do the expectation, if I don't perform the role expectations of a father? That's what he was struggling with. She needs me now, but I can't be here. in that moment. Is that making sense to everybody? You have a question? Okay, good. I mean, you can ask a question. I mean, not good. All right. Again, thinking about that, and we'll talk a whole bunch about different kinds of fathering, but this blows me away. 600,000 people are released from prison, or 1,600 per day. 1,600 people every day are leaving prison. That's an astronomical number. But look at the recidivism rate. 33% rearrested within 6 months. By the way, Jeff, if you need this, I'll send you the PowerPoint. You can see the whole thing. Anybody wants it, just give me your email. I'll send it to you. Okay? No proprietary rights here. So, 50% rearrested 1 year. Within 3 years, wow. And that number, that actually I should update that. It's almost 70% now. Even that number right there is, I just looked at it, is low. It's almost 70%. After 10 years, the number grows to 82%. You know what's missing in all this rehab stuff? Fathering. Fathering makes a difference. And how we assist that man to be integrated in his community, integrated into his family. Needs lots of help. Because the one thing that's working against the man who has the identity of a father is his associated identity of being a felon. So, is it difficult to get a job that has family-sustaining wages if you're a felon? What kind of job can you get? And when do you work generally? Yeah, you're working when it's time for visitation. I'm at work. I got work. Or sleep and my kids. So it changes the dynamics of everything when we think about that. And so we need, in terms of policy structure and institutional structures that guide men into reintegration and into the community and their families, got to really rethink from the lens of how do I help fathers become more involved with their children, okay? And by the way, custody arrangements, am I allowed to participate in their health care, in their education, in their whatever? All kind of rules that say you can or cannot participate. And remember, the more I can participate where I'm satisfied with my participation, the more likely I am to do it. If it's a barrier where I'm just knocking the doors down and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, I'm probably not going to do it. And if I have an orientation where I don't have a good history behind me about fathering, I've come from broken families and everybody's doing their own thing, I don't even have any place to sit and lean on that suggests this is going to work out for my good if I continue to do it. And so this is just a picture of U.S. prison system, in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. Barriers to successful reentry and reintegration. And I already talked about the father-felon identity. Hard in the paint. This is an interesting one because we're in the NBA finals. And if you say you're rooting for Indiana, dismiss yourself right now. They're probably going to win. They look good. I'm an OKC person, but Indiana, they look really good. Huh? Well, whatever. Anybody heard this phrase, hard in the paint? I almost got distracted. So go back to, I almost got distracted. Was going with you. Anybody hear this? Comes out of the NBA playoffs. Hard in the paint. Anybody familiar with that? What do you know about it, sir? What's your first name, by the way?
For me?
Yeah.
Jacob.
Jacob. I love that name. Yeah.
Hard in the paint would be, down in the paint, so, holding down that area, whether it's offense or defense.
Mm-hmm. And what it means is, in terms of the history of the term, is if you come in the paint thinking you're going to get an easy layup, you're mistaken. You're going to knock the crap out of you. It's hard in the paint, right? That's what men, I've learned this again from men coming through different institutions, and they said it's hard in the paint. They didn't use that term, but I connected the two ideas. They said every time I go to that office, everybody's beating on me. Nobody's receiving me. And then I go to the mother of my child. Everybody's beating on me there. And this thing called parent alienation. She's actually telling the kids that hate me. Everybody is against me. Bam, bam, bam. And the idea is using the heart in the pain. Do you want to win? I always say that. Do you want to win? What is winning? You want a good relationship with your child? You got to go hard in the pain. You got to go hard in the pain. All right? Know you're going to get hit. See what I'm doing? You're going to get hit, but you got to score. All right? No excuses. It takes a village. I'm sure you heard that term. It takes a village. I want you to think about this. How many of you have children? Okay. Okay. Steve got both hands up. Got a lot of children. But you think about it. The older they get, the less involvement you have with them. Even if you say no, I'm gonna show you how that diminishes. Because when they go to school, elementary, middle school, and high school, they're already spending 6-7 hours away from you. See, like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. They are involved with a whole bunch more people. So the time that you spend with them becomes more critical the older they get, because they're going to spend less time with you. They're going to hear a lot of voices. It's going to be a lot of people speaking into their life. You need to not only talk to them, your child or children, but you have to talk to the people who have contact with your child or children so that they understand, if you're going to be a teacher, this is what I want you teaching them, okay? And so I go from school. Again, if we just think, I might come home, do some quick eating or whatever, and if you may or may not be present, okay, when they get home, and then where are they going? Soccer, basketball, football practice, band practice, something. They're doing something, you know. Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, they're doing something. Even if they're not doing any of that organized stuff, they're going out in the yard and playing, right? Again, in various environments, okay? And the older they get, then they got a boyfriend or girlfriend, your time is going to be limited. It's important because your voice is important. And so don't diminish time and say, you know, less time, less impact. That's not true. Because they want to hear from you. They love for your presence to be relevant in their life. But they're going to do a lot more things away from you. Okay? So it does take a village. And I've used the term felinism. Again, not a real word. You look it up. This is something from Dr. Charles Mock. He talks about once you have the role of a felon, you may be discriminated. So you paid your debts to society, but you might be paying it over and over and over again because you can't get good employment. You don't even know if the discrimination is happening or not, because sometimes they're making decisions and you're not present when they do that. Baby mama drama. Moms are gatekeepers. Whether you're a non-custodial father and you live in the same city, or you're a live-away father, non-residential, you live in a different city, and that's becoming more and more present, or you are incarcerated or what have you. Moms are the gatekeepers. 70% in Pennsylvania, moms get custody of their children, 70% of the time, okay? So it's going to happen. And again, trying to make the point that while you are, struggling with the role of father identity and becoming committed to that, you have to also think about mom and what's going on with her. And by the way, if she has a new paramour, new boyfriend, a new something, you're going to have to develop a relationship with him. People don't think about that. Why? Because that's mama's boo. If he says to her, I don't like him, I don't want him around, it may have an impact on your ability to come to that house and see your children. Yeah. It's much more complicated than meets the eye. Okay. Porch daddies. This comes straight from men who say, when I knock on the door, sometimes she doesn't let me in because the other man is in the room. So I'm paying child support. I got this child custody thing, but she's not going to let me in. So I got a parent from the porch. Kind of interesting. And then this last one, sizzle sessions, comes from Tamika Craig's husband, Daryl. It's an interesting thing. He was talking about sizzle sessions. I said, what's a sizzle session? He said, it's very irritating. I hate going to meetings because all people do is talk. It's like somebody grilling, and I'm on one side of the fence and they're on the other side of the fence, and they got the smells and the sounds, and they take it off the grill, and you can hear them and they're getting it ready and everything, and they don't invite me over. Sizzle session. I can hear it, I can smell it, I can almost taste it, but no interaction. That's so frustrating. And I said, yeah, that's how men talk about parenting and fathering, is all of the wonderful things that can happen, but they don't get to participate in it a whole lot. Okay. Some fatherhood programs I mentioned, some things that Steve and I are working on. It has come out of 1995. Steve and Randy Turner, now Dr. Randy Turner, started the Foundations of Fatherhood in the Erie School District, and I was a guest speaker. And once I did whatever I said that day, I said, can I be part of this? Because this is great, right? And so they let me part of that. And we developed a whole bunch of stuff, Dr. Dads and long distance dads and Foundation of Fatherhood and something. I think there was one other thing. And then Randy got a job with NFI, National Fatherhood Initiative. He sold the Foundation of Fatherhood to NFI. They call it now 24/7 Fathering. That's our program. It originated here in Erie. I don't care what they say. I know the history. I know what happened. There's some financial, legal stuff connected to that. So, but it is that fathering material originated right from Erie. Our Father's program was volume 2. And I'm so glad I didn't give that to Randy, because they would have volume 2. Thank you, God. Because the men said, while Foundations of Fatherhood is kind of basic, we need a little bit more. And so I changed the name to protect me, Abba Fathers, but I also believe, like I said at the beginning, before fathering is social, it's spiritual. And it's connected to the stuff we talked about, created in the image and likeness of God. God is Father, and he makes that point. I want to stop there for a moment and ask you this question. My man here, what's your father's name? Willie. Mine too. So you got a lot in common. Yep. Yeah, there you go. See that? The Trinity. What do you call him? Yeah, what do you call him? What do you call him? Did you call him Willie? Your father? When he was yeah. And when, for me, it drives the point home. When Jesus said, when you pray like this. He didn't say Jehovah Nisi, Rapha, all these great names, Adonai, Elohim, Elyon. He didn't say any of those names, all great names. He said, when you pray, call him Abba. That's how important from the beginning in the creating an image and likeness of God. And when Jesus said to the disciples, when you pray, here's the name I want you to use. And when he said, I have declared your name, the last prayer he had before the crucifixion, he said, I've declared your name. But what was the name he was declaring? It was Abba. And in fact, I'm getting a little off, but and again, for me, this is like really important information. In the 4 Gospels, you won't find Jesus referring to God by any other name other than Abba, except one time. There's one time where he called on God, and he did not call him Abba. And I'm not sure of the direct translation, but Eli, Eli, and blah, 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 okay? My God, why hast thou forsaken me? And that name is associated with God, who was the supreme judge of the universe. Because in that moment, he did not need his father. He needed a different identity of the same God. He needed a judge. Right after that, you know what he called him? After sin was judged, he went back to call him Abba. And so I use that as a launching pad for how important fathering is to God. Same thing holds true, but not the same story in Islam and in Jewish tradition. The whole idea of bar mitzvah, for example, is connected to the idea of fathering. Did I prepare you? You are now a man, blah, 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 blah. And the whole idea of transference of inheritance. I'm sorry, I'm not talking to this a lot. I just recognize that. I'm so sorry, Tom. I heard myself. Okay. I want you to think here real quickly, small seeds building men with character. If you read that slowly, it has a double entendre, which means it has 2 meanings. Small seeds building men, with character externally, building men who have character. So it's both of them, and that's what we do. If you think about this, sow right seeds. If you were to type in, and I did this, I actually used that picture. If you said to your search engine, packet or package of tomato seeds, guess what you're going to get? Pictures like this. You won't get pictures of seeds. You'll get pictures of what the seeds produce. And that's the idea of small seeds. Okay? The program is designed to help men understand the seed that is in front of you is yours. And you have the opportunity to do some amazing stuff. Some of it is in the seed. That's what God has determined. And some of it is your DNA contribution. Some of it is her DNA contribution. And some of it's going to be environment, right? And so one of the illustrations of how important their participation is in developing controlling the environment is this. If I took a seed, this tomato seed that made this wonderful tomato, from that pack of beefsteak tomatoes, so I had the seed, and it was in a package. And I took the seed out, and I put that seed in a corn package, right? So it said corn on the outside. And I put that seed, or corn, and I put that seed in the ground. What is going to grow? Tomato. Why? Because it's in the seed. It's in the seed. So don't worry about so much what the environment the seed is in. It doesn't matter. God has created some things for that. Now, environment is real important. Again, I'm getting spiritual here. I threw some seed on stony ground and some on rocky ground. Well, it's got to be on good ground. And so although you can't sometimes, again, some of the men I work with, you live in a community where there's drugs everywhere. Can't move. That's why your presence, you got to nurture that environment. You're going to have to help the environment, not just your child. There's a lot of work you're going to have to do in this environment because you can't move. So again, harden the paint, roll up your sleeves. You got some work to do. One of those young men is my son. Grew up on 22nd, 23rd Street. Drugs everywhere. Prostitution everywhere. I taught my son at 5 all about sex. You know why? If I didn't teach him, guess what? The environment was going to teach him. Yes. People are like, what are you doing talking about? I'm showing him pictures. I'm using the words. Because he's going to hear them anyway. He's got to walk past all this stuff to get to school. Here's what I want you to do. Here's what I don't want you to do. Blah, 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 blah. So anyway, you get the point. Siege, and we got to be present, and if you're not present, you're leaving that responsibility to someone else. Okay. This IAAF is I Am Our Father program in Atlanta with one of our friends, James Tomlin. It's also I Am Abba Fathers connected to Abba Father program. Either way you look at it, it's the same idea, and so. The program he has is connected to a YMCA. That's where they meet, probably 100, 125 men, young and old, talking about father, intergenerational fathering, so on and so forth. This statement here, the quote, "It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men," comes from Frederick Douglass. And I think what do you think that means? It is easier to build strong children than repair broken men.
I would say that it's easier. It means that it'd be wise to invest in your children and trying to fix them after they become there.
Absolutely. It is an investment in time. Yeah, your energy, time, talent, treasure. Where do you put it? You can do it retrospectively or you can do it proactively. And the benefits are far greater if you do it at the beginning than trying to repair broken men. I use this illustration. It's kind of silly, but it makes the point. As my family started growing, they started using all the closet space, right? Got married. She said, "This is my closet," right? I said, "Where am I putting my stuff?" "I don't know." So I bought one of those portable closets, put it together, right? And I'm like a real man. So I got the instructions. It had A and B and B and C and C. After a while, I said, "That's pretty easy," right? So I threw the instructions away. kind of dumb, right? So, and it also said, after the fact I read it, was do not tighten everything up. Like put it in there and keep it loose until you get everything together. Well, I'm in there just tightening stuff away. And unfortunately for me, I said, what is this bar for? Forgot all about it. That's where I'm gonna hang my clothes, right? Got the drawers in. I'm looking, this is beautiful. And I went, oh crap, I didn't put the bar in. Now I've already tightened the screws up, right? Now what should I have done? Come on, tell the truth. What should I have done with this bar? Should have yeah. What did I do? What did I do? I shoved it in. Scratched up the whole thing. Messed up everything, right? Makes the point. Broke it. It's hard to like men that got habits, and I've done this for 15, 20 years. It's hard to change some of that stuff. And you try to force things in. And, no, it's easy to do it when they're supple. In fact, Ed Darnell, again, a friend of ours, said, when a young tree is a sapling, you can put guide rails to help the tree grow, and it'll work when it's young. But you try to do that with a tree that's 10 or 15 years old, it's going to break the rails. The tree's too big, too strong. You got to do that stuff early. Put the guides on very early. And again, it just kind of makes that point. Faith is central to understanding fatherhood, and I kind of made that point. Here's an interesting thing when talking to men. I don't care what your faith tradition is. Again, mine is Christianity. It's based on believing the Bible. But whatever your faith tradition is, regeneration happens before rehabilitation. Got to get you to think differently. As a man thinketh, got some scholars in here I know. As a man thinketh, huh? He do it. What church you go to? I'm going to tell you, pastor. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Yeah. As a man thinketh. Yeah. Yeah, you in trouble. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And so I got to have it here before you try to do all this real sexy stuff, helping me to rehab me and get me to be different. It's got to work here first. I got to change how I think about this whole idea of father. If I have the wrong perception of doing it, really got to work at that. So don't try to do all the sexy stuff first. Is really help me understand what it means to be a father and embrace that role before you start pushing me out in these programs and doing all this stuff, because it doesn't work if you push me in these programs. But I have not bought into the idea yet. They don't work. Not very well. Shouldn't say they don't work, but not very well. I have a couple things to show you. We're almost done. Oops. If you're older than 50, you're going to enjoy this.
Feeling 7 up, I'm feeling 7 up. Sharing styles, sharing smiles, feeling 7 up, 7 up. It's a crisp, refreshing feeling, crystal clear and crystal clear, and memories turning 7 up, and it sure feels right. Feeling lucky, 7, 7.
Good, huh? Wow, was that the stick? No, that's just my dad.
Feeling 7 up, I'm feeling 7 up.
It's nice to see my son still there, still smiling, you know. Sorry. I love you. Thank you for supporting me, and I'll give you a big hug, and we can all love each other. Thank you.
Novak Djokovic, ladies and gentlemen.
Mic me up. Okay. Almost done here. One of the things, again, the spiritual part of father, which again for me is foundational, is when Jesus started his ministry, so he's tempted by the devil, 40 days, he defeats the devil. It is written, it is written, it is written. And then he goes to get baptized. Comes out of the water, and there's a voice from heaven. You know what the voice says? This is my son. Again, reinforcing how important it is, father and son, father and son, father and son. This is my son in whom I'm well pleased. Just trying to make the point that presence, men, presence is what our kids want. Not presents, P-R-E-S-E-N-T-S. That's Christmas. Presence, okay? They want you to be present. In my world, there's no such thing. There's no such thing as father absence. You can physically be there or not, but your presence will always be felt emotionally. Just listen to what children say. They talk about you being present, or they talk about the absence, and that's a term called father hunger. There is something missing because you're not here. And I feel that. Well, how can you be absent if for the child, they're living with that every single day? Okay. So don't think absence says maybe I'm not responsible. That's why I don't like the term father absence. You're not absent, and you being the father of that child is still having an impact. You are making an impact. So you should think about that in more positive terms, okay? This coming Saturday, Impact Erie Men's Conference. Good time to promote this. We're going to talk about fathering. Some of the stuff that I mentioned today will be talked about on that day. I am the keynote speaker. It's kind of covered there. You can see a little bit. The keynote speaker, Dr. Parris Baker. And I'm also doing one of the breakout groups. So we have 4 groups. Each of them will be like 30 or 45 minutes. So each one of the moderators will do the same group 4 times. And we'll talk about empowerment, restoration, investment, and engagement. If you take that, it's an acronym for ERIE. I love that. Whoever came up with that, E-R-I-E. It was really cool. In 1995 to 2003, again, I can't prove any of this stuff, but from 1995, when the Foundations of Fatherhood began, until 2003, when it stopped in the way it was originally intended, the national average for single custodial fathers vacillated between 9 and 11% nationally. It went up gradually, but consistently going up to 2002, I think, 22% in Erie County. And how do we know that? You can look at the data. It's in the Mercyhurst Civic Institute. They did some research and said what explains the difference between the national average and what's going on in Erie. And you know what I said? Us. That's the difference. Now, I can't prove that, but I just know that we had an amazing impact on a number of men in their fatherhood journey, okay? So if you can make it Saturday, 1 o'clock at Second Baptist Church, which is on the corner of Wayne and 26th Street. See the address there. I think it's the 600 block, maybe. It's right on the corner of Wayne and 26th Street, though. We will be there, and we'll be talking about this incredible stuff called fathering. And that's all I got for you today. I don't know what time it is, but Q&A. Young man, what's your name, son? You're Jacob, too? Wow, Jacob Jr. So you're a junior. No, I don't want to do that. No, you can't give that to me. No.
Do you have a question?
No. Anyway, Jacob is an Old Testament name for James. So your name actually means James. Huh? Yeah, Jacob is in there too, but I'm just... You're at the New Testament? Huh? Yes, I'm saying it's in both places.
Like I've read to the New Testament.
Oh, okay, you've read it. Okay. So what can you tell me about it? Don't give him the mic because he'll get shot. Like,
The Old Testament.
okay, all right. I'm just happy that you're reading, son. I'm happy that you're reading it. That's a really cool thing. Dad, you're doing your thing, because that's truly imparting the habit of reading the word is an important habit, because it grounds. I believe words are seed, and that's a lot of planting going on there, and that will serve him long after he's away from you growing up. Yeah, it's real important. So thank you. Yeah. Can I call you JJ? No, that ain't my name. All right. Any questions? That's God. Oh, you have a different name? What's your first name?
So it's not my real name. But
Uh-huh.
it's like my nickname.
What is it?
My family calls me is Copo, C-O-P-O.
What is it?
Bacon, so
Yeah.
his name in English is Jacob, but in Spanish it's Jacobo.
Ah.
So we actually just call him Cobo.
Cobo.
Jacob. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I like that. Thank you. Any questions? Anything? Are we good? I do appreciate you giving this. What time is it, by the way? 8:21? Dang, we're supposed to be done at 7:30. You did. I thought I was like 7:15 or something, because I wasn't checking. That's what I do in church too. Pastor, you talk too much. Anyway, there's no questions. Again, I'm really thankful. If you can make it, show up. It's gonna be a good time. But appreciate you. All right. Have a good night. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, God.